Sage Boca.
Thank you. Ned, I happen to live in North Las Vegas.
Oh, great. It's very nice to meet you then. Especially nice to meet you.
I've lived in North Las Vegas for 2 years. It's 2 years in Nevada. I rent a house from the family of a deceased veteran. I have a school across the street. I have crossing guards that help the children to and from the elementary school. Wrong. The crossing guards are not providing for the children's safety at this particular elementary school. And that really concerns me. I call it in, I report it. I see cars double and triple parked because our street is quite wide for flood zone. Children and their parental figures cutting through cars. One time have I seen a police car actually come by and patrol. And it was interesting that when that police car came to patrol, that a lot of the parents who had walked there to pick up their children disappeared. I am suspecting it illegal immigrants, afraid of seeing a police officer there, so they left instead of picking their children up from school, leaving their kids to cut through traffic. It's a big safety issue, and I'd like to know how you might see addressing this type of situation, because I'm sure that my home and this elementary school across the street from me are not the only ones with these issues.
Oh, I can absolutely assure you that you are not the only one with those issues, and that's very unfortunate. I would like to address, or I would like to at least mention my feeling about this is there's a much larger issue at work here, and one of the areas in which local government can have an effect on education is in the siting and the design of our schools. And in my neighborhood, I think it's probably the last elementary school that has been built in North Las Vegas. It was just finished, and it opened a year or two ago. It's just next to RC Farms. And I remember this school coming through the system as a planner, and I was on the planning commission at that time, and there's a process that we go through to look at these things. The city spends millions of dollars each year in paying for professional staff to make their professional recommendation on site planning. And we have a commission that makes recommendations on those plans that we come through. And this applies not just to schools, but obviously to any development, but specifically to this school. It went through that process. There were some issues with the way that the road was designed. There was an issue with negotiations between Mr. Combs and the school district. And as it finished, the negotiations broke down, and they were not able to build a full street. So what happened at this particular meeting, they were at an impasse, and one of the staff members jumped up and said, "Oh, well, just today we spoke with the school district, and here's the site plan that we came up with." And they looked at it, and almost without discussion, the city council approved that site plan. Well, you go there today, and when we had rain several months ago, the water was flowing everywhere. And you look at the road, and it's in front of a school, and it's not adequate for the cars, the parents dropping their children off, and there's not adequate parking. And the way the site plan is arranged, not to go into too much, as an urban designer, I'm very interested in this, but they put the parking lot way over to the side, and the children have to walk clear around it. It's, in my professional opinion, it's a mess. And every day, the issue here is that every day when parents drop their children off at that school, it puts both the children and the parents at risk. And the people who live along those streets in that area have to deal with the parents parking along the street. And I think you have that same issue in your neighborhood. So it's not something that we can necessarily go back and retrofit, because what's done is done with building. This is why we need to get building done right in the first place, is that by and large the things that we build will be there for 50, 80, 100 years. So one of the large problems I see is that our current mayor and council have not worked closely enough with the school district and exercise the type of leadership that they needed to in order to get our schools sited properly and the school sites themselves designed properly. And based on my background in planning and design, I think that I would have a great deal to add to that discussion. Now, the bigger issue that you talked about, though, is accountability. So we have, and there's also an issue in here with parenting. So we have, there's some neighborhoods near me where there are three, I live near Commerce and Centennial. North of there are three schools: a Legacy High School, an elementary school, and a junior high school, I believe. Maybe two, yeah, an elementary and a junior high. They have problems there with the kids cutting across their lawns and doing graffiti and doing all kinds of mischief. And so one of the things I proposed in that area in working with the HOA is that they would have some, the cynical people would say, oh, well, you're looking for vigilantes to come out and police the neighborhood, and that's not it at all. What it's people, it's parenting, and it's not just the parents of the children, but it's everyone in that neighborhood. And I think the saying that it's an old African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child it rings true here, that we need everyone who lives in our neighborhoods to be more responsible for what's going on. Now, I know that you're very responsible in your neighborhood, and you've been responsible in calling to the police, and I'm sorry to hear that you did not get the response you need. Now, that comes to an issue of accountability. Now, when I usually, in this election, when I talk about accountability, it's usually accountability of the mayor and the council to the residents who elected them, and in the residents knowing that their mayor and council are looking out for their interests rather than outside special interests, such as the minions that we just talked about. But when it comes down to accountability, the mayor and the council set the tone for the rest of the city. And if the mayor and the council have not set a proper example of accountability, then that may be, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I suggest that that may be one of the reasons why we are having less accountability in the rank and file workers of the city. Now, what I would like to do immediately when I am elected mayor is to visit with each of the department heads, and to we could even meet with individual departments to see what their issues are in that department. And why I would do that is I would like to build more of an atmosphere of trust and respect within North Las Vegas City Hall. It's something that's missing now, unfortunately, and I think that because that's missing, one of the extensions of that is that and it reaches down to the residents, is that we are not, even though we have the services in place and we have very highly qualified, excellent people, that they, sorry, I just go on, you've touched an issue with me, so that they are not necessarily following through on the jobs that they need to do, and they need to be held accountable.
The last question will come from V. Carson, and it's going to be a very brief question.
And it will be a brief answer. I'm sorry to be so long-winded. I guess I've become a politician. Even though I'm first time in running for office, I've become a politician already.